political astrology analysis of Trump's second term. Who's going to be friend? Who's going to be foe? Let's find out and decode it in this video. All right, so as everybody's trying to figure out what's going to happen in the second Trump administration, who's going to be in it, who won't, what are going to be the policies, what are going to be the main projects, maybe the oppositions, where is this whole thing going, we can apply a special analysis tool. We can apply our astrological X-ray goggles to understand the underlying constellations behind all the major players, the friends and the foes. And that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to look at the relationships of Trump to people like RFK and Elon Musk, and on the other side to Barack Obama and people like Jerome Powell and lots more, in order to see where these relationships are going to go to and how important they are for this upcoming second term. So that's what we're going to do. So make sure, if you haven't done so yet, to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell as well for this channel. There's going to be a second part of this analysis, this political astrology analysis as well, where we're going to look at the international playing field. We're going to look at Trump's relationship to Putin and Xi Jinping and many other important international players. So make sure not to miss that one neither. Okay, so let's get into the analysis now for the domestic edition that we're going to do here for the USA edition of the political astrology. And we're going to look at Trump's relationships, evolving relationships and existing relationships, to understand what's going on with them. So when we want to understand Trump's relationships, it's really important, first of all, to understand that Trump has an issue, a recurring issue in his life with relationships, with allies. Like, that's his challenge. That's his big challenge in life, right? He has a Saturn with Venus in the 11th house. Saturn is where you have your big karmic lessons, hardships, difficulties, right? They are around relationships and allies. 11th house is allies, right? Unless you realize this energy in a very, very high form and very mature form, which requires spiritual maturity, right? At which point you can master it. Right? Unless you do that, it's going to have this kind of repeating pattern of the, bad experiences with allies, bad experiences with relationships that are supposed to be friends, right? And Trump, with all his spiritual power that he has, the big spiritual mission that he's carrying, he's not necessarily a highly spiritually evolved person. He hasn't done all of that personal development work to a very high degree. So he is struggling with this issue for sure. And you can see that from his prior choices that he made. People like Mike Pence and Chris Christie and many others who turn out to be very bad allies, to say the least, right? To not say anything worse at this point. And now what happens is that he needs to counteract this, right? Trump needs to counteract this. And who did he choose? Who was one of the, let's look at the main people that were the allies in this campaign, in the campaign that he won, right? Let's look at Robert Kennedy. So Robert Kennedy, RFK Jr., he's on his own. When you look at his chart, he's a great, he's a revolutionary of sorts. He's a revolutionary of, with the Uranus here, of health, right? So his sun and Venus is with Chiron, and his North Node is here. That's his purpose in life. His purpose in life is to make America healthy again, right? And also, be a catalyst potentially for a global change towards a more healthy form of life, society, social development and social organization of what we do with regards to food and many other things. That's written in his chart. And he has you can see the constellation in his chart. It's placed on, when you look at let's bring up the synastry. So I'm going to bring up the synastry. You can see this. You have Kennedy outside. This constellation that he has, right, with the health revolutionary, right, it's on Trump's Venus, Saturn, right? So Trump can here be as a stabilizing force. He can act as a stabilizing force. He can bring this into, he's also going to be a blocking force. Saturn is kind of somebody who blocks things, right? His Saturn is here. Saturn is like something that kind of limits and blocks, despite all the enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, definitely great enthusiasm, great trust for each other, right? RFK, he puts his Jupiter on Trump's Sun and Uranus. You can see this here. So RFK is giving an incredible amount of trust. When you have somebody put their Jupiter on your Sun, it's the kind of purest form of trust that you can have, right? Their destiny is tuned in a way that they're really going to trust each other, more so than others even understand why, right? His own family doesn't understand why. His own family, right? The Kennedy family, they don't understand why, right? People will not be able to see and understand, but they really trust each other, especially RFK has put a lot of trust into Trump, right? And this trust, with the Jupiter, he's going to be a really good advisor. So Trump, he should heed RFK's advice, because RFK also, he has the sun here in the opposition, right, to that problematic relation. He can shed a lot of light. It's not going to be easy, but he can shed a lot of light on Trump's issues with allies, right? So Trump should better listen to RFK. He should listen to RFK. Has he done that? Is he going to do it? We're going to see in a bit, right, when we continue the analysis. One more thing about RFK, very, very important, very important. RFK, he currently has this nasty transit. You see here the transit that's going on right now with the Mars-Pluto opposition, right? This is going on in November, right? And then coming back in April, right? It's a long term, it's like several months now where we have this opposition. You see here Mars and Pluto, right? Pluto on the descendant and Mars on the ascendant. This is a Mars-Pluto opposition, right? So ruthless opposition and even violent confrontations. And on the other hand, like personal violence applied to himself. This is going on for 4 or 5 months. This is not a nice constellation at all, right? This is like dangerous, very dangerous. So here's one thing that people should keep in mind, right? Just putting this out there, right? However this may reach people or not, it can reach to the ether and it can reach higher consciousness and do its thing. But people should really look out for RFK in these next 4 months, right? People should really, really look out for him. Like, he should be protected, really, really protected. He has huge enemies, he's taking on like massive vested interests. You can't even imagine how large they are, those interests, right? And he's fearless. He's, this is my life's purpose. I'm here to take on big food, big pharma, everybody, right? And he's gonna face opposition. Then I'm just gonna say this next 4 months until April, he should be really careful. People should really protect him, really, really protect him, right? And then with God's grace and support, when he gets, afterward, right? When the year starts in 2025, he is actually going to be able to make a really, really big difference, right? He has in 25, he has Jupiter going on his Uranus and on his moon, which is huge popularity, right? And big breakthroughs in innovation, right? And the Jupiter goes on this constellation, right? This constellation that he has it opposes this Chiron and, his North Node, his mission basically, his mission in life, to bring health, right? To bring health to society and to the community, to the 6th house. The Jupiter hits it in 25, so he's going to be super successful with this, right? Even though he will have to take on huge enemies, right? Pluto on the descendant. And as I said before, Trump, he should better heed his advice. He should listen to RFK. RFK is going to be a very, very good advisor for Donald Trump. But there is always here the danger of Donald Trump blocking him, right? Not really allowing him to do that much, holding him back, right? Which we saw here with what? With his Saturn being on that constellation. Saturn is placed here, right? Saturn is limiting factor, right? So probably he will hold him back a lot. Trump is going to hold him back a lot, right? Now, that being said, the choices that he has made. Okay, let's first talk about Elon as well. Elon is really important in this whole thing. Obviously, probably the person who had the most kind of visibility, apart from Trump himself, in the campaign. And when you look at Elon, and some people really don't get it, right? They're like, oh, Trump will move away. He won't need him anymore. He's just there for his money. Why is it a billionaire supporting? It was the richest person in the world support. As if the Democrats didn't have billionaires. They had like all the billionaires, right? All the billionaires were supporting the Democrats, and they didn't make a difference at all, right? Because they don't have the vision, they don't have the drive, they don't have the mission that Elon Musk has. And these people, they're both people whose mission is aligned, right? Their mission is aligned. They're together because their mission is aligned. And moreover, when you look at their charts here, Trump with Musk, it's very interesting. They have both of them Jupiter to, you see here, Jupiter to Venus, right? Trine one way. And then here, Jupiter to Venus, trine another way, right? Double whammy, Jupiter to Venus, trine, right? In their charts. Like this is a very, this means, what does it mean? Well, they also have Venus on the sun, really like each other, right? Mercury with Mercury, they can talk a lot. They speak on their same wavelength in terms of communication. People who have Mercury on Mercury, they can talk infinitely. They can just keep talking to each other, right? And others are sometimes like, what are you guys never want to stop talking, right? When two people have Mercury conjunct, that's what it looks like, right? But so these people, they can really, really talk to each other. But then most importantly, what do they have here? They have the Venus with Jupiter trine both ways, which is what? Which is wealth generation. They're both businessmen too. Right? Obviously, they have a mission that they're fighting for, but make no mistake about it, they will both also massively enrich their prosperity through this. America's prosperity, country's prosperity, people's prosperity if you want, but also their organizations in some way, right? So you can already see Elon Musk is always on the calls, especially with all the countries that have lithium. Like they were talking to Serbia, that has like a vast lithium, reservoir, and Elon Musk was on the call with Trump, right? And this is kind of a pattern. It already started before when he went to South America. He met Milei, right? He needs the lithium, right? But you can also say the U.S. needs it because he's a defense contractor, right? So in this case, the prosperity and wealth that is generated and the deals that are made. Basically, these two guys are like the optimal synastry for deal making. Right? Incredible, like the best that you can have. They're going to make so many deals, right? So many deals that will be good for the economy, probably will be good for the economy, will be good for their respective business interests as well. And now you're going to look at who else? The next person to look at is, let's actually look at who, when I was saying Trump has issues with problems with calling people, finding allies, right? Choosing the right people. Let's look at Marco Rubio. Here's a perfect example, right? Marco Rubio is not just a, war hawk, neocon, exactly the kind of person that, Trump was supposedly not going to bring in a second administration, according to Donald Trump Jr. and many others, and himself actually, according to RFK as well. I mean, he said that to RFK. RFK said, I'm going to advise you so you don't bring the neocons in. But it's not just that, but it's also personally a problem. Like Marco Rubio is not going to be Secretary of State, right? He's going to be Secretary of State. And when you look at him, he has his Mars, you can see here, this is Marco Rubio's Mars, direct opposition to Trump's Pluto, right? This is like ruthless opposition to each other. This is like getting into a battle for life and death against each other, right? At least potentially, there's the potential here. And obviously there needs to be other factors to make that a reality. And there's other factors here as well. What is the other one here? Saturn square Mars, right? So he's also going to kind of block, his Saturn. He's putting his Saturn in a square to Donald Trump's Mars. He's going to kind of try, limit Donald Trump's authority in somehow. This is what you can see here. His Saturn is also on Trump's MC exactly, right? Rubio, he's going to somehow do actions that will limit Donald Trump's authority, right? Maybe by doing deals or saying things that he wasn't supposed to. Is that going to work out well for Marco Rubio? No. I can tell you these guys are going to fight. This is pre-programmed. It's in here. It's written here. They're going to fight, right? There's going to be a big row. There's going to be big issues with him getting fired. He's going to get fired, Marco Rubio, right? Maybe that's the plan. Maybe Trump has put him in there in order to then kind of pull some 4D, 5D chess kind of move to fire him later. But this is not somebody that he would want to have. And just think back about how Marco Rubio spoke about Trump when they were still running against each other back in 2016. I mean, Trump is nobody's to forget these things neither. So it's a strange, odd pick. Might be some other interests there in the background that are bringing this about. Now, Who else could you have chosen? Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard was a great candidate for Secretary of State, right? She's a great kid. She really understands everything in that field. And she is America First. She has America First policy, right? Not a neocon understanding, right? So Tulsi Gabbard, but then Tulsi Gabbard, she has some issue. Her chart with Trump is not very good. It's not very good. Even though there were allies here in the campaign, but they're not going to work well together, right? I'm not going to go through this right now, but they're not going to work well together. And then she has her personal chart. She has a couple of difficult years coming actually ahead, right? She has some difficult years coming now because she has all of these planets in Aries and Libra. Personally, all of these planets are there. And then Saturn is going to go into the next 3-4 years. It's going to go through Aries. It's going to be a little bit difficult, right? A little challenging, especially because her personal planets are all here in Aries, right? So these next 3-4 years is mostly for her to build up her profile and, to look ahead for the future, not necessarily to already be very, very, in the mix and on the highest level. Who else we're going to look at? We got Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, well, he's got somebody who's going to have a lot of good ideas for Donald Trump, right? So you can see this here. When you put them together, there is a little bit of competitiveness here too in some weird way, right? With the Pluto on Mars conjunction, but in general, there's a lot of kind of exchange of ideas. You can see a lot of exchange of ideas. You got the Mercury to Mercury sextile and a couple of other very friendly harmonic aspects as well that are standing basically for he brings fresh ideas. He brings fresh ideas, not like life-changing, relationship here, but he brings a lot of fresh ideas. So he should get a good post. He's going to be very effective in communicating with Trump and with bringing a lot of fresh energy into the administration. Now, what about J.D. Vance? J.D. Vance is obviously they were friends actually, right? They grew up together or they were in the same college, Vivek and J.D. Vance, they knew each other from university days. And J.D. Vance, he has actually also pretty interesting constellation and synastry with Trump, where J.D. Vance, he puts his sun exactly on Trump's Pluto, right? And natally, J.D. Vance, he's got a sun. This same sun is in a square with his Saturn. You can see this here. So this is his natal configuration where he's pre-programmed, wired to have authority conflicts in his life, massive authority conflicts, right? Sun, exact square, Saturn. And this authority conflict constellation is put exactly on Trump's Pluto, right? So Pluto is Trump is going to be the powerful boss, obviously, who is going to catalyze and trigger the authority conflict in his life. Right? So you can see this as well. They're going to have conflicts. They're going to have massive conflicts too. They feel very good about each other with Jupiter and Moon, right? Conjunct each other. And with the, Trump, J.D. Vance is very, very supportive, obviously, with the Moon sextile Trump's sun. Very, very supportive. But at the same time, this is something that takes time to play out. It's not immediate, right? Because Pluto is here square Saturn, and with this, Pluto and Saturn is always going to end up in some massive, big, long-term entanglements that are very difficult. Power struggles, shifts and stuff. Very difficult, but this is long-term. This is at the end of that, maybe in 2028 or in 27 or whatever the case may be, right? It takes time. It's going to take time to unfold, but they're going to have this experience, right? So that's the allies, that's the friends. Now let's have a look as well at some of the foes, right? The people who are kind of on the other side of the spectrum. Let's start with Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is very interesting. Is somebody who, in my earlier videos, political astrology prediction videos of this year, I had him as the front runner for the Democrats to run against Trump, right? Because I was clear that Biden would not make it. I predicted exactly the month that Biden would drop out of the race in July. But in my estimation, it was going to be Gavin Newsom that takes over, right? And that runs. Why? Because I had seen constellations where Gavin Newsom around November, October, November, right? He would be making some big moves. He would be making some big moves, and he would be taking some big, very bold moves. Very bold moves. That's exactly what I was saying in the earlier year, in the earlier predictions that I made earlier this year. And turns out that, well, for one thing, the Democrats were not very smart, right? Not very smart at all to make the choices that they did, right? To let a person run who was basically incompetent. But secondly, the Democrats, secondly, what I was seeing about Gavin Newsom making these big moves is actually happening now. It's happening now, right? How is it happening? Not in a way that I predicted or saw as possible, but how is it happening? Well, he's starting to really position himself as an alternative, and he's starting to position himself as he's starting to position California as a potential breakaway, right? As a potential breakaway republic. It's not necessarily going that far, obviously, but he's starting to make the first moves where it's like, okay, whatever is going to be is decided in Washington. It doesn't really apply to us, And also there's this kind of thing where a lot of liberals are starting to move to California. They're like, let's go and build our own thing there. We don't need to, we can be independent and so. So this is some brazen moves, obviously, very, very brazen moves, right? And when you look at the synastry, like he has his Mars on Trump's moon and sun, right? He's like a visceral opponent, right? Right? And he has, what else? There's also some others. They have like some Jupiter, Mars. They can actually, and they have some, funnily, interestingly enough, they have Jupiter with Sun as well, right? So there's a lot of respect between them. There's going to be a lot of respect between them, right, for each other. But at the same time, also this karmic opposition. Like when you have North-South node on Mars, these are actually past life enemies, right? So you see here, South node is past life, Mars, right? And then opposite Sun. These are past life, and there's like a lot of karmic animosity here, right, between them. And at the same time, there is this respect for each other, which is why I am doubling down on my prediction that I made before that Gavin Newsom would take over the reins of the Democrat Party, not just the Democrat, but kind of the opposite, the globalists, right, or whatever we want to call them, the woke alliance, right, that is going to start to gear up and with lots of financial and billionaire Silicon Valley support. And he has currently Jupiter on his MC, and Jupiter is going to come back by April. You see this here, by May 2025. By May 2025, Jupiter is on his MC this whole time. He's going to become the undisputed leader of the the side that wants to kind of stop or block or be some kind of hindrance to the plans that Trump's administration is going to execute and work on, right? And he's going to have a lot of support. Obviously, Silicon Valley, tech moguls and the BlackRocks of the world, they're going to all kind of start to gang up together. And now, let's look at who else. Well, who else is involved on that side? There is obviously maybe the biggest loser in this thing was Barack Obama, right? Barack Obama, he was campaigning like crazy. He was campaigning desperately for Kamala Harris to win because he kind of looked like somebody who, people who were smart and observing this, they saw this, he looked like somebody who has a lot to lose, right? He was not just normal, he was like desperate. He needed to win because he was sweating. He kept talking about the hands are sweaty, palms are sweaty, mom's spaghetti, stuff like this. These lines from Eminem. People thought this is cool, he's rapping about, but actually, when you think about it, he kept doing that again and again. It was a Freudian giveaway that he was super nervous. He was really nervous. He kept doing that routine weirdly, again and again. And he was really nervous, anxious, right? And he has a lot to lose. Why? Skeletons in the closet. Who has more skeletons in the closet than Barack Obama, right? Maybe Hillary Clinton, you can add to that. But Barack Obama, if you look at, actually I should have had her on here too, but maybe for another time. So if you look at his chart, Barack Obama, right? So what does he have coming up? In the coming year, he has the main thing that is constellated here, right? The stars don't lie, the big, the show is already, the script is already there in the written by the big boss up there, right? Who has the script already set, within which we move and make our decisions, right? But the script is here. So you can see in 25, the year 25, what happens to Barack Obama? He has transiting Pluto opposite his Mercury, right? For the whole year. What is that? It stands for legal battles. Nerve-wracking legal battles, right? Legal battles and just like very manipulative, dark things that are going to happen, where a lot of his secrets are going to come out, are going to be, brought to light. Pluto is also going through a 12th house of secrets, right? Opposing his dealings, which is Mercury, right? And at the same time, shortly after, so after a year of these legal battles and secrets coming out, he's going to have what? He's going to get here, you're going to see this, Saturn with Neptune are going to be squaring his Venus. Saturn with Neptune going to be squaring his Venus, right? Which is loss of financial standing, right? Dissolution and loss, Neptune and Saturn, of financial standing of Venus, right? He's going to lose a lot of money. Right? So that's, Barack Obama doesn't look good for him, right? Doesn't look good for him. So now you can tell why his palms were sweaty, right? You can tell. So now, who else? Did we look at everybody? We looked at a lot of people. Maybe I want to do still, not to get too long here, I want to do still a couple of people quickly, right? One is Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, he was obviously a friend, right? He's a friend. And, he was very important supporter of the Trump campaign. And you can see that here too, with his moon being placed on Trump's MC, which is like a supportive role, a public supporting role. But that being said, actually, he has his Pluto square Trump's sun and moon, and they have a couple of other things that I need to see if I can find them here. They have also, of course, Trump's Mars directly squaring his moon and sun, right? His emotions, his consciousness directly square. And these guys are basically, look, the astrology is very, very clear on this. Tucker and Trump are rivals, okay? Visceral rivals. They can't stand each other at all, right? They have they could get in, if they were in a natural situation, this that kind of synastry where they could get into a fight, right? Into where it could get heavy, right? But the thing is, they're also political allies. And you see that too in the chart. They're political allies, right? They were kind of on the same side. They would both benefit by winning, right? And which they both did. But you can mark my words, with the passage of time, with the significance of the passage of time. This is the significance of the passage of time, right? Kamala Harris, the great philosopher of astrology, she knew this, that there is a great significance to the passage of time. Namely, it is that the cycles get activated with time, the different cycles, the different transits, they get activated. And in this case of these two guys, what will happen is that the rivalry will come out. It will come out, right? With some time passing, Tucker is going to start to position himself as an opposition, right? You can be sure of that. And Tucker is going to position himself as an alternative. He has ambitions, right? He has his own ambitions for the future. So that's that. They could both be, not saying either of them is in the wrong here. This is just their script. This is just their personality. And they could both be fighting for, in synastry, sometimes you have people who are both fighting for what is the right thing. They're doing the right thing. They're serving God, or they're pursuing a mission, right? But still, there's a necessity. It's just written in the script that they need to clash, right? And it's necessary, right? It's going to happen, right? So that's that. Now, who else do we have? that we didn't talk about. Two more people who are very interesting that I will still share with you before I wrap this up, which is Jerome Powell and Gary Gensler, super interesting as well. But before that, just let me remind you again to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell and like, and do all of those things. Write some comments, about what you think about all of this, because this all helps the channel grow. And also keep in mind that if you want to work with me personally to decode your relationships with everybody else, your political allies, if you have them, or otherwise your business partners. If you're running a business, you're going to be working with people, clients, your partners that you built something with. Other kind of key important people in your life. You want to analyze those relationships like we're doing here, obviously with much, much more detail and much, much more holistic insight on all levels. You can work with me. You can find in the links below all the ways how to do that in many other areas as well. But now let's look at Jerome Powell and Gary Gensler. These are important, both of them, for the economy and for the crypto people especially, right? Very important. And what do we see here? So Gary Gensler, he is the guy who Trump at a big Bitcoin conference, he promised the Bitcoin folks that he's going to fire Gary Gensler. He said, like, on day one, I'm going to fire Gary Gensler. And everybody was going crazy, right, about it, because people don't like Gary Gensler. He's the guy who's been going after all of the big crypto projects, right? Has a personal vendetta against crypto, right? And so is that going to happen? He's running the SEC. Is that going to happen? Is that going to happen? Well, first of all, Gary Gensler, he has some extremely empowering transits coming up right now, right? He's in a phase where he's riding like a big wave of success and enthusiasm, right? In his personal, he has Jupiter trining all of his planets, literally all of his planets from now till mid 25, right? Like giving him a lot of boosts and power, right? And then secondly, when you look at the charts of both of them together, when you look at Donald Trump with Gary Gensler, it looks like, they have here Jupiter on Mars, Mars on Jupiter. Mars on Jupiter is the sign of doing big things together, right? Doing big things together. Then they have here Mars. Okay, right. So Trump doesn't necessarily take the guy very seriously. Maybe he's going to try to, he's going to try to do things. Maybe he's going to go to him to kick him out. But then how I see this play out is that Gary Gensler is going to find a way to weasel himself out of this predicament, right? He's going to find a way to weasel himself kind of out of the promises that Trump made. And somehow they're going to make a deal. Somehow he's going to come and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to now do this for you, but I will do that too, and so on. And, I will do all the New York style, right? Like in Billions, the show Billions, where they're doing like these transactional, constantly, like, I do this for you if you do that for me. And Gary Gensler is going to have a lot of things to offer. As the boss of the SEC, he's going to have a lot of things to offer that Trump will listen to, right? And that's Gary Gensler. I think he's going to find his way and stay in there, right? He doesn't have necessarily a very, very negative, and he has that character too. But now another case is Jerome Powell, right? Jerome Powell obviously is super important as the boss of the Fed, right? The Fed, which is in many ways standing, in the way for what Trump's looking to do with the economy, right? And the Fed is also not really accountable in many ways. It's very strange. I don't know how it is supposed to work. The Fed is not completely accountable to the president. Is not really elected. And it's kind of this independent thing. There's rumors, there's stories of who they're really accountable to, but I'm not going to get into that here. And Jerome Powell, if you look at it with the relationship to Trump, they are like real enemies, okay? They're real enemies. They're like karmic enemies, with the Pluto here on Mars in a wide opposition to the sun. Then Saturn square Saturn, okay? Like their ways are basically against each other. They're going different ways, right? So the one needs to go not one way, the other needs to go another way. This is Saturn square Saturn, right? And this is going to clash. The Mars square the sun here another time, like the Mars squaring the sun. Whenever you have Mars with hard hits on the sun, if it's repeated several times, that's the sign of an enemy, right? Pluto and Mars against the sun is a sign of an enemy, right? Especially if it's repeated a couple of times. And well, okay, they also have some other things here. Well, obviously there is some big energy is involved here, some big ideas or some big powers are involved with the Jupiter conjunctions here that they have. But all in all, Jerome Powell is going to be an opponent, is going to be a major opponent. And what? For what? For what thing? What are they going to do? What's his plan? What is he going to do? If you look at it, Jerome Powell, next year, he has Jupiter going on his Uranus, right? This is the time when he will be able to make some big moves and big innovations, right? In September, sometime next year. And this is actually a marker of what? Of technological innovation, introducing technological innovation. We need to look at, to go deeper into this at the chart of the Fed. But my analysis at this level is that Jerome Powell is going to push for the introduction of CBDCs. And Trump has obviously come out and said, we're not doing that. He's already come out and said that, right? We're going to have to see if Trump will be able to assert this actually, or if he's going to have to compromise. But this is going to be a major point of contention between the two, between the Fed, the power of the Fed, right, which is eventually about establishing a system of control, financial control, completely controlled by that entity, not by the people, and between the revolutionary reforms in many ways that Trump is looking to enact. Now, we went through all of these and we looked at all of these different angles. Each one of them we can analyze obviously much deeper. This is a first kind of glance at looking at the underlying constellations, right? But as you can see, we see so much deeper with this than the surface level political analysis, right? This is the deep stuff. This is the real stuff. This is what you understand how everybody's constellated and where the story is going to, right? So let's do this further in the coming videos and make sure to be part of this journey as we decode further what's happening globally. As well, in the next video, we're going to look at Trump and the international sphere. We're going to look in the next video in this series. We're going to look at Trump's relationships to key international players. So make sure to be there. I see you there. Take care of yourself. All the best. Be blessed.